Yo, welcome back to another Lavrat Guitars Toltec Pickups video, and today just a quick tutorial on how I like to string jazz bass, precision bass style headstocks basses with the 4 on one side traditional tuners, the one string tree. So I get my strings threaded through the bridge, and I've already done this one, the G. So now onto the D, which is still hooking under the string tree here. That's what that's called. That is there to create a break angle from the nut to the post to go down at a desired angle. Otherwise they're coming out straight and they can cause rattling issues if there isn't enough pressure in the nut slot, which the A on this style basses, precision, this style headstock with the one string tree, the A can cause issues like that if you don't get enough of an angle there. I like to create that angle a bit more with getting a few more winds round the post of the string, so it's going lower down to create a bit more of a break angle on it. I'll show you that. The D, so what I like to usually do is get maybe 2 wraps, potentially 3 around the post. So I'll pull the string tight through, pause, and this is the post we're going to be going round. Now these kind of split posts, same as the old vintage Telecaster, Stratocaster style tuners, have a little hole through there which you can poke the string, otherwise known as the safety post, some names have called them. So I want to string round this post here, so I've got my D, and like I usually like to measure a next but one post, which means if I'm going to this one, it's like a whole post and another one distance. You could measure it in inches or millimeters or whatever. I just get a rough guide by that. So I'll hold it there, and then I'll just bring it back to this one where I've grabbed it from the post where it needs to be. That's where its final wrap is going to be, to there, and then we've got this length to about here, and then I'll just snip off. So again, that to there, and we've got this, so we've got all of that there is going to be going round the post, then through the hole there, and then press right down to create that little kink in there, and that is bottomed out. And now I hold with my finger there, and I get the rest of my fingers underneath the string here, and kind of just like to, I will be pulling and keeping tight pressure on here, and then when it starts to grab hold at the bridge end, keeping tight pressure with these fingers under here to make sure I'm tight on the bridge and tight at this post. Pause. I've got this bass string winder. You can do it with your hands, but that is a pain. Get yourself one of these if you can, and then keeping it taut, I gradually start to wind round. Now some of the vintage old style 60s basses, the gear, on the back, the cog and what's called the worm gear on the back of the tuner is it's the opposite angle. So when you're tightening up this way, you would be, it's going the opposite, so you would be stringing up and going that way to tighten. You can see how we're turning this way and it's undoing. The vintage ones would go the opposite. The worm gear, as it's called, is the opposite direction. So start to wrap, and I'm going underneath. When it passes round again here, I'm going underneath, and I've got that tension now with the rest of my fingers pulling on the bass, pulling on the bridge, and we're going all the way around, keeping it tight, threading under the string tree here, and as it wants to go in its slot, there we go. We've got 2.5 wraps, let's say, and then we can do that with his fingers there to get roughly in tune. Then we can gently pull on the strings. You can do that when it's all strung up, and just what's called stretching the strings in. The new, you want to just stretch them strings in by just gently pulling a little bit, so it's tight there and tight at the bridge end, and you can hear it detunes because it's stretched out a little bit. Pause, couple of turns of that, a couple of goes. I don't know if that's precisely in tune, I'm just doing it by ear at the minute. But now onto the A string, which, as I said before, can cause some rattling in this nut slot on the open string if you don't get the break angle steep enough. The way to eliminate that for sure is to have another string tree holding this one down. Sometimes some basses and guitars have a full bar that goes across holding all of them down. Of course, with an angled headstock, the break angle on the headstock makes up for that, so there's no need for the string trees there. With the A, let's say I'm doing my rule of thumb. It's not set in stone, it's just how I like to do it. It would be next but one post, let's say to there. But because I'm on the A and I want another couple more wraps round, I'll probably go extend and go to the end of the fingerboard, so we've got kind of all that which is wanting to go around the post. Let's see how that turns out. Let's see how it turns out. I'm going to pull it taut and I'm going to snip. Usually I would probably snip there, but I'm going to give it another extra bit of length there again. So into the hole, pull right down, make sure that's sat right in the base of the slot there. And now again, holding with a bit of finger pressure there. It's too much slack to take up with the back of the fingers there, but we'll wait till that comes round, and then we're keeping that tight and we're going underneath, nice and neat. And we're going to have extra wraps on this A. We don't want to get too crazy where we're overlapping. We never want to overlap strings really, or wraps, let's say. Going all the way nice and neat, keeping each layer that goes under each of the, the layer that goes under the last, nice and snug together with minimal gaps as possible. So I've got about 3.5 now, so there's an extra full wrap on that. Let's say we're roughly in tune there, and then sometimes when you start to just stretch the string and you'll see it kind of wrap round and bind again there, you'll see it move very slightly. Let's get that on the strobe tuner and roughly see where we're at. Not bad, not bad that. So we've got we've got 3.5 wraps on this, an extra wrap to create that angle a little bit. Obviously the more wraps that are going round the post, the further down that this is going to the bottom and creating more of an angle here. If we only had one or even half a wrap, I've seen some basses with even half a wrap. Again, this is for this style of tuner. Some of these tuners on a lot of the import Japanese basses, let's say, would have a very short stumpy string post pause. Rickenbackers are known for having short posts as well. They also have their own issues, but they tend to not have that issue that this has. Again, stretching in. The E string, thickest. Now, because this post is very close to the nut here, we don't want too many wraps going round this, because what will happen is it'll start to overlap if there's too much string. So I can take that to maybe the next one, and let's say a half. In fact, no, I'll go next two because just a little shy, let's say. Again, down through that hole in the centre, create that kink in there so it's touching the bass. That's kind of what it's doing. Touching the bottom of the post where the hole is, and then keeping it tight and making sure that when it comes around and passes around here, that is nice and snug to the post without any gaps or anything that could cause the string to want to slip, because there's play in there. Let's say now that's a full wrap. This is going to have a really steep break angle here because the post is very close to the nut, you see. So I've got, let's say, it's almost like 2 wraps on that. 2.5, 2.5, 3.5, 2. It's not written in stone, the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is how I like to do it, and it's how I get success from doing it. If we were to have more wraps on this E post here, we'd start to be overlapping too much because it's very close here. Stretch that string in again. Now we're rough tuning, just a guide, because it's on the bench, it is laying down, it's on this neck rests, so there's a bit of the weight of the bass creating a bit of like up bow, let's say, in the neck, so that when we get it into playing position it will go a little sharp because it's had a bit of this taking some tension. So we never want to really intonate for a final setup with it laying down. We want to do everything that when we get to the fine tuning in playing position. But for stringing up and getting rough, just for beginning, before we start going to the truss rod, if we need to, creating the relief, the action height and the intonation. Obviously if you're just changing strings from a bass that has been set up very nice and you like how it's playing, it's not going to need too much of a tweak. But for things that have been laying around quite a while like this one has, and we've put a new bridge on this, we fitted a new, it's a Fender bridge but it's based on the Leo Kwan badass bridge design, the high mass bridge with a really long saddle travel pause, which makes the bass intonate a lot better. So there we go. Recap. Take whichever string you are going to be winding, the post, next but one. So I'll bring out to here and then I'll kind of bring back to here, and that's as much as I want that distance to go around the post. Again, that one, that distance. the A a little further, so I'll go out and take it from that post to here, so I've got more turns to create that angle, and the E a little less, maybe 1.5, so there's not too many wraps there. And that is how I like to string these style headstock basses, and that's easy in it.